now. Yes, you can. Good afternoon, everybody, again. Thank you for your patience and perseverance, and welcome to the second of our forums here. I'm sure you know everybody, but just for the record, my name is Chris Mann from the BBC, and I'm chairing this. Dave Doggett, the big man, the chairman of the club himself. Is that right? Possibly, I'm told. We've got Jez George, Director of Football. Welcome on, Jez.
Thanks, Chris.
Been a quiet day today, observing.
Very much so.
A man I've already talked to at length, and I'm sure you've enjoyed his chat about the season ahead. Richard Money, our head coach. Richard, enjoying the day?
Very good.
And Mark Bonner is here, the UT coach as well. Hi, Mark.
Chris, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Now, I don't know if we need, do we need the microphones, or can you all hear? How would you like to do this? You like the microphone anyway? Yeah, okay. All right, let's see if anybody has any questions to begin with that they'd like to ask. Or shall I? I'll kick things off and talk to Dave a little bit about how you set the club up for this season, because obviously you came in midway through last season as chairman. You've had a good look at the books and sorted things out, and how good or bad are things?
Well, I think the good thing is we're still here, because I've been involved about 18 months, and unfortunately we were a disparate group, whether we were fans, whether we were the team, even the youth. And so my main aim is to get us all going in the same direction, and I think that if there's anything that I've achieved, that is one of them. And I think today sort of brings all that together when we're all going around chatting to each other and talking positively about the future. On the financial side, it's been tricky, and I can say that from various angles. But we have managed to get fans involved again, we've got companies involved again. If you look at the sponsorship deals, we're about £120,000 up in net commercial income compared with this time next year. Next year will be even higher compared with last year. And because I don't think people really understand that the income that comes through the gates, either through season tickets, that only pays for 40% of running this club. The rest of it has to come from all these other activities. And it's whether you buy the CFU lottery ticket, whether you buy a shirt, whether you buy a burger, that's what makes a difference. And that's why we're so lucky this year to have a lot of new sponsors. Whether it's Hermes, whether it's Mick George, whether it's Bindis, there's so many companies now seeing that this club is going places, and what we've been able to do is give Richard and Jez the budget, well, more than enough in my opinion, but then I tell you, at board meetings, Jez comes in and I go out for 5 minutes because I know what's going to happen at the end. He'll say, can I have another player? And you know, so I don't bother to listen to all the old claptrap that goes on. You know, I have a 5-minute break and then come back and say no. It's dead easy.
You want a right of reply on that, do you?
And then we saw Nathan Arnold.
A couple of serious points. I'm sure folk have been here before. They've heard stories. The club's sorted out. It's on a new path. The story's been told before. We earnestly hope that this is finally it. Tell us why that would be the case this time.
I wasn't here before. I think in football it's very easy to get carried away. And when I was asked to join the board, I sort of said, yes, business brains in, egos out. Because all you lot want us to have players that are going to cost the earth. And a few years ago, that's what we did. And where did it get us? It didn't get us anywhere. What you need is actually to get the whole thing as one. And to me, that is the achievement of where we are today. We all in this room want the same thing. We're not. The first fans forum I went to, apart from asking a question and got on the board, but it was all conflict. And the conflict doesn't work. In any company, if you've got everybody to go in together, you can overachieve. And like today, I think the players have been fantastic. They're talking to you, so when they make a mistake, instead of getting on their backs, you get behind them and say, don't worry about that, the next one will be a goal. So if you can do that, we can achieve it. On the financial side, it was horrendous, and you can't keep losing 250,000 a year, which is what we were doing without success. Now, even this year's budget shows 100,000 loss. and that, you know, and if we don't have the success, the directors will have to keep it going. It won't happen by magic, because people are putting hard-earned money in a belief. We haven't had any luck, have we? When did we last have a cup run? When did we last, you know, there's been no luck. With a little bit of luck and 200 or 300 people coming through the gate, we can make up that 100,000, get behind the team, and we can be up there and in it with a shout. So if there's anything I can say is the books, there is no VAT bill that's not paid, there's not a tax bill that's not paid, everything is paid. When I was looking at the debtors and creditors this week, we've actually got slightly more debtors than creditors. Last year we were 150,000 adrift. I had people knocking on the door wanting 150,000, and in the bank there was 20. This year we're not far off, we're not there, but we're getting there. So the structure's in place, financially the structure's in place, and now we go forward together.
Thank you for the good news, Mr. Chairman. Just to say as we go along, if anyone wants to ask a question, please just raise your hand or shout or whatever. Jez, so we've heard the financial side of things. We hope is on the improvement, but I guess the way we're going to get more numbers in through the door is good performances in a higher league position.
Yeah, 100%, and it's the biggest variable in any budget. You know, however much we try and predict what happens, Dave, it's that's the biggest variable, how the team performs and how many people come through the gate. I think this year it's been done correctly in the budget in terms of budgeting for non-success last year, and therefore we know that if the team performs, we know more people come through the turnstiles, and we know that that will help the finances. But I think that a lot of the, hopefully today you look at some of the new players, you'll see that they're all about 8'3". You'll have seen them play in some of the pre-season games and had an idea of what you think, and hopefully all of you and many others will be here on Wednesday night. But I think the process that preceded that was really important, and the last couple of months of last season was pretty painful for everybody involved. But we needed to go through that in order to be at the position we were at the end of the season, which was identify targets that we knew we wanted to sign, and in a position financially to go and do that straight away. A great credit needs to go to Dave. He won't say that, but I will. Great credit to Dave, great credit to the board, first of all, for showing, I think, that the right balance between ambition and knowing that if you keep cutting a budget, the law of diminishing returns means you're going to cut your income. But equally, that there needs to be financial sustainability, and you can't risk the future of the club. That's a really tough balance to find in football, and they've done that. Great credit to them, because as Dave said, it's their hard-earned money that goes in if things don't balance. And then great credit to the commercial team that Dave heads, because, I don't know, probably as quick as we've been signing players, we've been signing commercial deals, it seems to me, in the summer, and there's a huge amount of work goes in behind the scenes for players to come here, and I'm sure exactly the same happens for the commercial deals. So the fact so many local companies have shown some renewed faith in the club and want to be involved in the club, I think augurs well for the future. So our bit is probably the easiest bit in the whole process, which is funds are made available to us. We watch football matches. We as a group, Ben Strang does a huge amount of work and is an unsung hero, but watches loads and loads of games. I think between us we watched about 260 games last season, and we know a lot of players. Richard will identify the targets, or we'll identify people that Richard then looks at to see whether they're the right player for us. But there's a real big team effort behind the scenes that goes into that, but it's the easy bit, because it's the bit of, like I say, watching football, finding players, and then persuading them to come here. The real work is done to give us the platform to do that by Dave, and there's a lot of other people who deserve some credit behind the scenes as well.
Any questions at this stage? Just give us a shout if you want. Richard, let me ask you, obviously you've been at other clubs, other stages we talked earlier on, high levels, and in different jobs. How would you assess where Cambridge United is right now?
I think it's football is a business where people like to be optimistic, and this is the time of year when everybody's more optimistic than most. I would suggest there's not a supporter of any club in the country who doesn't think their club can succeed this year. But some of that's reason to be optimistic, and others it's very optimistic. I think in our case, I'm comfortable that there's a reason to be genuinely optimistic. And with that comes expectancy, which I've no problem living with. The players, I hope, will have no problem living with. And as I said before, the reason for coming to this club in the first place, not just myself, but in selling the vision to the players this summer, is that this is a club that has everything in place, and we've just talked about what's been done to make the finances more sustainable this summer. But if you look at the stadium, the training ground, the staff that we have, the structure that's in place, right the way through from development centres to our shadow squads, to our youth programme, to our youth team with bonds, you know, this is a club that has a really good structure and the right amount of potential to really go forward. And a lot of people don't maybe understand that all of that is in place, because they only see the tip of the iceberg at the top. But one of the things of working at a number of clubs, and in some cases very big clubs, I can genuinely say that that structure, pound for pound, is as good as anyone's. And therefore that means that there's a lot in place for this club to go forward. The only thing that isn't in place is that the first team is not playing at the level that we want it to play at. And so we've genuinely had a real good look at it this summer. I've been here now since October, November last year. We made some decisions in January that we knew were important decisions for the summer. And Jez and I have had to take it in the neck a little bit, understandably, because people want you to do that whilst continue to win. It's difficult to cull a group of players and keep the dressing room intact, because the negativity that creates is difficult to control. But we felt it was necessary, and also necessary to let everybody out of contract go in the summer to make the necessary changes. If I was sat here in front of you and we'd signed 2 or 3 players and we had the same group of players as last year, quite rightly you'd be asking me, why are we going to finish any higher than 14th? So we made a lot of decisions in the summer, and I go back to where I started. I think we've made a lot of decisions throughout this close season and pre-season that give genuine reason for optimism. And now it's down to the group, staff, players, to produce on the pitch. So that's the next step in the process, to keep that belief and to keep that optimism and to keep that confidence going forward. Because if we can get that, it can drive you a long way.
Thank you. Richard, of course, is the head coach, but let's see where the future of the club is in terms of the youngsters that are coming through, because Mark Bonner is the youth team coach. Mark, can you give us an update of how things are? We obviously met some of the scholars that have made it to the first team on the stage, but just give them a general view.
Yeah, we're at that stage where we have a new intake at the moment, so we've got 8 sort of first-year scholars who have just joined us and are integrating into the life of a Cambridge United scholar, which is an interesting task to try and get them away from home and living away with the boys and everything. It's a tough ask for them when they're 16 years old, but they're adapting to it really well. You see a few of those younger boys that have moved on and played a few minutes in the first team this pre-season. Bobby, Mitchell, Liam Hurst, and they've got a big jump now because the better the first team becomes and the higher the standard of player in there, the bar raises all the time, and the demands therefore on the young players keeps going up. So for our youth team at the moment, the better the first team gets, the harder it becomes for them to then break into that team. But that's good. We have to push the standards on them, and tough education's a good one, I think. And we've got a nice group there. We've got a group of good technical players, and physically they're a little bit behind some of the others at the moment. There's a lot of development still to go physically in them, so that might show in some of the games that they play early on. But we've got some good players, and we've got a system and an organisation in place where we try and bridge that gap between the youth team and the first team with the loan market, which has worked really well previously, and we'll continue to do so next season, I think.
Chris, let me have At the risk of embarrassing the pair of them, I'm not sure if you really know this, but our under-12s, for example, will go to Man United and Man City and compete. And our under-18s will play against Tottenham or whoever else you want and compete. So that's where the level is. And everyone wants to play us, A, because we've got good facilities, and B, because we've got good players. So, you know, you couldn't feel that this club, in terms of a youth programme, is in a better place. And I genuinely mean that. And I've been academy manager at Newcastle. And we'll go up there and beat Newcastle's under-12s. So the only thing that needs sorting out is for the first team to get back in the league. That's it.
Thank you. I don't want to bring politics into a sports chat, but I think I have to touch on one subject, and that is the community stadium. I'm sure you'll all appreciate that, and you want me to ask the questions. We had the MP for Cambridge in briefly earlier on. I don't think he's been to many matches, and he's coming. But he's been given a tie, which he's promised to wear in the House of Commons, which is good news. I see there's a Conservative councillor sitting in the front row here, as well, just to give balance. But tell us where the situation is with the stadium at the moment, Dave.
I think in terms of planning, it's a consultation which goes on to the 30th of September at the moment. So we can still start to, or keep on, explaining what the project is. And today we had the chairman of South Cambs here, and in all his finery, and we made sure he was centre of the team photos, so he's going to take it back to South Cambs office and put it up. Julian Hubbard was here, and I gave him a tie, and he's going to come to games, and he said to me, he said, I think I'm understanding now what you're trying to do, because events like today show that what we're doing in the community, and we can work with the politicians, and they, I think, as a club, we possibly haven't explained it in enough detail. So the more we keep explaining it, the more we have days like today, the message will get through. Because what we're doing in the community, we've got the clothing bank here today, and what we're working with the Abbey Ward and with other people in the community, that's what this club is about, and that's what I'm proud about. So the first team's the top, at the bottom is the work in the community, and if a politician's got any sense, they'll actually support us. And I said to the Lib Dem leader, he was here as well, I said, if this time next year we're on an open bus, and I said, you've supported us, I said, you might even get re-elected in May. And, you know, but that is what they're about, aren't they, is re-election. But also, they should be working us, because we're working hard in the community, and as politicians, they should do the same. And I'm hoping we're getting that message through, and hopefully, in the end, we will get the planning permission for the sporting village and the new stadium. But we've all got a part to play.
I think Dave's exactly right there, and perhaps when you're doing it and the resources that we have available there for the personnel doing so many things are stretched, we're perhaps not always so good at letting everybody know what we are doing. James Cutting sat over there, so there's 1,000 kids every single week have the benefit of being coached in our development centre system that James runs. But below that, the community football programme and what we're doing in local schools, there'll be 50 after-school clubs going on this week, where Cambridge United are delivering a variety of sports from fencing to archery to gymnastics and probably least of all football. In the last 12 months, 5,000 kids have taken part in activities that have been delivered by Cambridge United Football Club. And then the council says there's no need for facilities for sport. We have to get the message out better, I think, as to what we're doing. And Richard's right, we're proud of a youth system that, whilst we're playing Norwich on Wednesday, our 9s to 12s are playing Tottenham. We're proud of that and that they want to play us. But we're also proud of the number of kids involved in our youth system and the number of kids who have access to sport that is delivered by Cambridge United Youth and Community Trust that wouldn't be otherwise. And I think we've got to get better at getting that message out to the politicians so that we can get what we need to take everything forward, not just the club but the community work as well.
Any questions from anybody?
With the shortfall of the new stadium and facilities, what practical impact is that going to have on the club?
The shortfall because the stadium isn't there at the moment.
Because it's not going ahead.
Have on the club going forward.
I think there's two. I'm going to pass the mic today for the financial for the club, because it's obvious that nowadays in football, like Dave said, what do you say, 40% of your income through the gate. We've got to be able to generate money 364 days a year commercially. So that's one instance. The other thing is that we have a bill every year. We spend over £100,000 a year, the trust, in just renting and hiring facilities to use to deliver sport, so to deliver the activities that we do. We often have to have AstroTurfs at unearthly hours on horrible 8 o'clock in the evening. In the middle of winter, it's very, very difficult for us to provide opportunities for kids to play because we have no facilities whatsoever. We've got 20 yards behind the goal of grass and some pleasant porta cabins at the front that provide free saunas in the summer. So we haven't got any facilities to run the programme from, which is a big frustration to us. We spend a lot of money on the training facility that isn't ours. We spend a lot of money hiring facilities all around the county to use, but with nothing that's our own. We believe that if we did have the amount of work we could do in the programmes that we could deliver would be unrecognisable to what we do even now, as well as it being aspirational for kids to go and use facilities that are next to a stadium and are state of the art. And if we look forward and we are suitably optimistic and this club can get back into the Football League, the one thing that is going to stop us with our academy status or our youth status is a lack of facilities. And that'd be a real crying shame that we've got everything else in place, staff, players, infrastructure, but facilities stop us.
Yeah.
I think, from my point of view, we've been trying to identify every source of income. And so we have the cafe, which is great because it's bringing in an income. This week we've had a hen party, quite a wild hen party. I wasn't invited. But all sorts of things that you can actually do to try and do it. But a new stadium is a whole new ballgame, isn't it? Yep. You can only have 60 corporate hospitality places. There you're looking at 300 covers. Right. A friend of mine just went to Brighton, their new stadium, they're now getting 30,000 people in because it's somewhere people want to go. As an away supporter there, you're actually treated to a bar where they'll actually bring in your local beers from your club. They'll actually have the colours projected of your club. They welcome away supporters in. All of a sudden, people will want to be part of it. If you're in the Newmarket Road end in the end of February and it's -10, what facilities do we offer you? I tell you what we offer you. We offer you a toilet that should have been condemned years ago. We offer you a shed to stand in, and if it's a poor game, you go home pretty fed up. And therefore, we want to make it so it's welcoming, and actually from there the whole thing projects. So most new stadiums, it's a 25 to 40% increase in crowd. And if we can make it so it's more welcoming, so there's more families in, all of a sudden we can expand the work in the youth and community. We can actually then help generate more funds to get a better player budget, and the whole thing goes up. Most of the clubs with new stadiums climb through the league quite rapidly. Look at Doncaster, look at Brighton. They're all there. Look at Milton Keynes. And you get the product right, we're competing with other entertainments. And today, there's all sorts of things going on. How do we want people to come here? And we have to make it welcome.
There's a gentleman over here.
It's well documented that Grosvenor have been contributing towards the rent, so you're not paying so much rent. Is that going to continue for the foreseeable future, or are they going to increase the rent?
No, we are, this year we're paying rent to Grosvenor. And that's...
the full amount, or is it reduced?
It's as the agreement was, as far as I'm aware. It was a ramping up, and if Richard and the team are successful, then it will ramp up again. So, do I want them to be successful or pay a bit more rent? I think I'll go for the rent. So it is one of those things. But Grosvenor are superb landlords. They're really looking after us, and they want to provide something in Cambridge that has their name on it. They want a sporting village created by Grosvenor and helping the community. So we're really lucky.
Politician with a question.
Yes, yeah. Thanks, Chris. Actually, I'm not a councillor because we don't have Cambridge councillors in Conservative ranks. There's only one on the City Council. So I've probably got a better chance of making an MP than councillor, historically.
What's
But
your
what I
question?
would like to ask, actually, I'd like to ask the head coach, Richard, because we are lucky to have someone like you, because you tend to go off to bigger clubs. How do you see your role in the next, let's say, year, 2 years, in which, like you're saying, you know, hopefully by then we've got into the Football League, and we might have had a cut run to bring in an extra £200,000?
Well, I think it's already been well documented that I had an opportunity to leave this summer. And whilst people may think, why would you want to travel halfway around the world to be a football coach? I can tell you it was a big project, and it's a real big club and a massive company. But I was blown away really by the response of everybody on the board to make a determined effort for me to stay. And whilst there are other things like family and health and everything else, I genuinely respect that the board have made a real effort this summer to do what they can to help us bring in the players that we want. And also I've signed a number of players to, if you like, help us achieve what we want to achieve. So all those things together, I'm comfortable and happy with the decision that I've made, and I'm really happy here and I'm really looking forward to the season. I'm not naive enough to suggest that if things don't go well, then you know, all the goodwill and optimism in the room suddenly starts to go the other way. But that's the life of a football manager, football coach. You know, if you don't understand that, then don't take the job. So I really don't look too far ahead. I think the task for this season is pretty clear. Is to get us challenging, first of all, to get us at least in the playoffs, and if we can, do better. I'm never naive enough to promise anything. I've already said how difficult I think this league is, and I think that's true. And I'm also, I wouldn't say pleasantly surprised, but I am surprised at the quality of this league. It's poo-pooed by a number of people, wrongly, who don't really know what they're talking about. And there's a lot of clubs like ourselves who all have the aspirations to become league clubs again. But there is potential here, and I want to be part of that potential, and if you like, make that potential reality and get this club back into the league. And if we can get back into the league, and please take this the right way, as I felt with Luton, you know, we finished second 2 years in a row, and it wasn't good enough for the support because they're obviously still very angry of what's happened in the past, and you move on. But I think if you can get over that first hurdle, as with Crawley and Fleetwood and Stevenage and one or two others, it's relatively more achievable, more simpler to make the next step very quickly, because you know the finance that's generated both by becoming a league club and by you know the goodwill and the good feeling around the community of becoming a league club again makes finances a totally different ball game, and you're in a different market quickly with players, and you know, and then the real potential of the club becomes a big selling point. So that's a very long-winded answer to your question, but really I'm not looking any further forward than tomorrow, when we can actually have a day off, and Tuesday back in training and ready for the game on Wednesday. And I think that's the right approach.
Other questions?
To Richard, if you're able, would you go for an assistant? And if so, are there any particular people that you enjoy working with?
I think that's a hypothetical question at the moment. whichever club I've worked at, I'm a little bit self-centred actually. I hog the limelight and hog the coaching. The bit that everyone wants to do. Let's get rid of that. So, I'm very hands-on. And I think what we've tried to do, and Jez has been very instrumental in this, is surround myself with people at the minute who people might not perceive as assistants, but are assistants. People like Matt Walker, who is as good a sports scientist as I could employ. We've employed an intern this year to help him, who is ostensibly our fitness coach, who again is as good as you'd want to employ. And so those types of people and their skill sets are more important to me than another coach. But another coach would make life a bit more simpler. There's no doubt about that. But at the minute, it's a hypothetical question.
Is there none in particular that you've worked with in the past that you would be interested in?
I think Ryan's made the jump from the northeast. I'm not sure whether Peter would. I think the most important thing is that if it ever happened, the thing that would be first and foremost on my mind would be whether they're any good. So,
Any other questions? No?
yep.
You say this is a very competitive league, very strong league. How many teams in this league do you think are capable of winning the conference, who are seriously capable of winning it? In other words, what are you up against? 8 teams, 6 teams?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption. I think everybody who people would expect to be up there can win it. I think Stockport was a massive wake-up call for 1 or 2 clubs last year, ourselves included. And it was paramount, really, in our discussions, Jez and ours discussions with the board. But I think Stockport showed everybody what is capable if you take a risk. And I think Lincoln come into that category, and they've recruited very strongly this summer. And I think people like Barnet, Aldershot, Chester are the imponderables, because you don't know how they're going to do. But certainly all those teams that failed in the playoffs last year will all think they're capable of winning it. So I think there are 6 or 8 at least.
Well done. Well, thank you much indeed, everybody, for your questions and your time, and thanks to the panel. And here's looking forward to a successful season. Yes.